Hi everyone, welcome back to Shoganet Gaming News in this special interview series opportunities stemming from our partnership with the Casino Esport Conference and the idea proposed by its founders, Ari Fox and Beck Fox brothers, to see the worlds of casino industry and esports industry understand each other and maybe think this as an opportunity for the future of casinos. And the attraction of new generations for these venues. So today we are talking about the new event that the Casino Esport Conference and this new partner in Atlantic City, the Esports Innovation Center of the Stockton University, is creating for October. One of the speakers of this event is Anthony Gaud. He's the founder of Gaud-Hammer gaming group, also known as G3. And basically, well, he has worked for several corporations, including Walt Disney. He has made several accomplishments for Microsoft Games, Discovery Networks, Hasbro, and Nexo. He's an Emmy Award winner, a board member of the Esports Trade Association, executive board member of the Great Atlantic City Chamber. And I could go on, so I'll let him introduce, if you want to complete your introduction, Anthony, and welcome to Shoganet.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I've done a lot of things. I don't want to leave anything on the table by the time I pass away. I've been a television writer, art director for TV shows, but when I switched into digital, I think it was the most fulfilling part of my life, right? So I've done a lot of firsts in my career, like the first computer generated television show. I was art director for Reboot. We did first free to play gaming with Nexon, brought that to the States. First VOD on demand channel with Comcast, who brought that back in 2006. And the first public-private partnership in esports, that was 2019. A couple of other things in the middle. We've had some exits in a lot of the companies we created, and it's a lot of fun to do something no one's ever done before. So in a sense, I'd like to try to invent things. When we started, it was ideas for television shows, and now it's big technology and business concepts. But I don't think anything I've ever worked on before is as big as what this is. And it's important not just to my company and my investors and my staff, my team, my partners, but also to Atlantic City in New Jersey. What we're doing now is trying to create a new way to wager on video games and electronic sports, esports. And it's something that a lot of people have predicted will be the future. The ability to play a video game for money, the ability to win things in a game for money, the ability to wager on other people playing games for money is something that a lot of people have spoken about. We have been completely off the radar when it comes to what we're doing with only a select group of people. But we have significant partners in with our project that we will announce next year. Amazon AWS, Comtrade, LexisNexis, Continent 8. These are some of the biggest partners in the iGaming space and backbone technologies for iGaming, and all of them have, in one way or another, given us technologies and or funding for technologies and innovations and new technologies to launch for what we're going to announce next year. So we're excited, and we've been working very hard to get this done.
Right. Well, it sounds really exciting indeed. Well, actually, we could start by having your own, in your own words, why you have decided to join as a speaker for this October event, this CEC EIC Northeast Summit in Atlantic City. What new doors and opportunities do you think this could open up for both casino and esports industries?
Well, I've known Ari and his brother Ben, mostly Ari, but I've known them for years, and he is a very earnest person. And when I say that because there's a lot of people in esports and in the gambling sector and that crossover of esports gambling that a lot of people are talking about a lot of stuff. And it's easy to claim to be an expert, go on panels and just open your mouth about the future. It's very hard to make it, right? And it's one of the things that Ari is, when I say he's earnest, I mean he's one of the ones that's actually actively trying to help people create these things and bring them into fruition. I live here. I live right outside of Atlantic City, about 10 miles away. So, it was a kind of a no-brainer to want to attend. And Ari invited me. I wanted to come in. But I think part of it is that we need to start understanding that talking about the future, it doesn't do anything, right? Like, how are companies going to get things going for New Jersey and the gambling industry and the esports industry? One of the first things we did, we worked with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority and Bill Penders to help bring the Stockton Innovation Center into reality. So we worked for, more than a year to select a partner, which was chosen to be Stockton, and make that happen in order to create an industry here. We worked with the New Jersey Assembly to draft not one law, but two, to make esports wagering and video game wagering a reality here. And then working on further laws and amendments that will make it more refined and allow an industry to be born here in Atlantic City. So I like to look at it as a sort of Silicon Valley, on top of what the casino industry has already established here. So there's a lot here. And I want to be able to, and now we can finally start talking about it. We just started showing our technology demo to a few select prospective partners, and the reception we've received is very encouraging, because that's exactly the reception that we wanted, that we expected to get, but you never know until you actually try to go out and show it to people. But the industry is going to be a big one. I think it's going to be a lot bigger than people realize. A lot of the iGaming companies don't really understand, well, it's not their job to understand what is the next level of iGaming, right? So if you're on a casino floor, if you're a slot machine designer, it's your job to make sure that the current products work, that people are playing those slot machines. It is not your job to figure out what's going to replace a slot machine. So people that take risks, like myself and other people, we take those risks in order to present what could be the next slot machine. And at these shows, I think, at least in my small effort, I want to be able to weed out the talk from the people who do.
Right. And if you had to, well, I don't mean to make any spoiler of what your presentation will be in October, but if you had to anticipate maybe the key arguments, or maybe the key concepts that would behind your presentation that make a case before these the traditional casino executives that are thinking about, of course, they are thinking about everyday's numbers and financial reports, and maybe if they had to make some room for to leave out exclude some of these slots, the best performing slots, to make some room for esports, or maybe any AR, VR, or immersive technologies in the gaming floor. What would be your case before them to maybe to persuade them to taking those risks that you were talking about recent?
I don't think you can. So when I used to work in television, one of the things you do when you pitch an idea is you tell the group, hey, imagine if we can do this. Imagine a show where there's this or that. And that isn't really useful, I found, in this environment, right? So I think our argument, and it's something that we've been talking about it, especially with the Esports Trade Association's Regulated Video Game and Esports Committee that I'm the chair of, along with Eric Weiss and Harry Jackson. Yeah. We talk about, I don't need you to convince you that the video games are big. Video games are big, and these are the numbers. I don't need to convince you that wagering on video games will work. It's already happening, and it may not be legal. It may not be licensed. It has no protections whatsoever. It's what we call gray market, black market products. But the numbers are huge. And one of the most important things I can say is not only is it happening, but now they're moving into your territory. So wagering on Tetris is one thing. Wagering on games that are very similar to poker and blackjack is an entirely other thing. And that's exactly what's going on with the skill-based gaming companies across the United States, right? So if you need to see that there's a viability here, it's already happening. So look at those numbers. Now we just need to make sure that we do the same thing and make sure that it's licensed and works through casino partnerships, and that the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement and every appropriate enforcement agency in gambling in the United States also approves of these things, which is what, if you're going to hit what my project is, that's what it is. But how do you do it in a regulated way that protects the gamers, that ensures that there's fair play, safe play, that people want to leave the system because they've become addicted to it, can opt out safely and securely without a lot of different ways to get in. That's our project. We want to make sure that the states get the tax revenue that they deserve and have the regulatory oversight. But I think the mistake that a lot of us made at the beginning was painting a big picture without realizing that the people we were speaking to have a much more financially focused vision, right? So the numbers are out there. It's already the gray market, black market is already a giant space. We aim to make it legal. We aim to make it larger, and we aim to normalize it so that it does replace the current generation of iGaming with the millennial generation when they move into casinos in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. Well, just to take a specific case of the HyperX arena, the MGM's Luxor, in 2020, G3, your company helped facilitate the first legal esports betting event in New Jersey with Allied Sports, which is the owner of HyperX. So I was wondering if you kept working with Allied Sports in other projects, maybe, and if you think there's potential for a game changer move there to bridge both worlds in with having MGM in the middle and the Luxor. Do you think that there is growth potential there, or is it making the best use of this area in the middle of Las Vegas?
So going back to that event, so I think it was September 2019, 2020. It's so confusing with the COVID because I lose a year of my mind. But we ran that event and we got it approved by the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement as the first online wagering event. And it was, I think the numbers were 1.7 million viewers for that event, right? And I think that was in the press release. Yeah. And what was really interesting about that was that we didn't announce the event, at least not in the way that you would think we did, because we didn't know whether it was going to be approved or not. So I was literally on vacation less than 24 hours before the event ran, when I got a call from the DGE that said the event had been approved, but the event was running in less than 12 hours. So we didn't have time to promote it. The event ran, and we still had a huge number of players. I mean, of viewers. Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that is it shows that this is the demand that everyone was expecting to have. I'm a little upset that people haven't spoken about that when you're trying to justify the online wagering side of it. There's a company that is already operating in New Jersey and their revenues are very, very low. And this company should be promoting things like that and doing events like that in order to get a larger return on their investment that they've already put in, right? So it shows that even with no marketing whatsoever, that people are very interested in an esports and a video game wagering product. Allied in particular has been a great partner of ours. I know some of their principals quite well for many years, one for over 12. So before Allied even existed. And what they are doing in the desert is the first of many different kinds of projects that you'll see. One of the things Allied owned was the World Poker Tour, right? And, having not spoken to Judd in a little while, I know that their aspirations is moving in this direction. And they are a company that has put a fantastic product out there, given visibility to something that's been on the fringe, if you're over the age of 45, you don't even know this exists, even though it's maybe the biggest thing on the planet, which I just gave a lecture to students like on Wednesday about this. It's like this thing that you watch, no one over the age of 45 even knows it exists, you know? So I think Allied is one of, by putting that big pyramid in the desert with the Allied Esports logo, I think a lot of people are starting to take notice. And it's one of many steps for the maturity of video games and esports, right? Like if you go back and you watch those Ken Burn documentaries about baseball in the late 1800s, it very similar, right? Nobody really knew what it was, and you have a bunch of guys standing on a field with rickety gloves, and some of them look like they just woke up from the gutter because they were drinking the night before, that kind of stuff back then. But the reality is that grew into a multi-billion-dollar industry that spurned other industries, also other professional sports leagues. And I think what's going to happen here, I know what's going to happen here, is that we're going to grow this into something big. But I think some of the missteps that we've made as an industry relate to the United States trying to copy South Korea. I used to own a company in South Korea, along with one of the guys from Allied. We used to own a company together in South Korea. And that was my first real exposure to esports. And I tell this story a lot. So if you've ever seen any interview with me, you'll probably skip the next minute. But if we were out there in Seoul one night, and the group that we were with all go to lunch together. So like 20 or 30 people going to lunch together. And then I noticed there was another group, a commotion across the street. And you know how you always know that there's a celebrity because people have that look and they start looking, pointing. And it turned out to be like an esports, a StarCraft player. And I didn't understand what that meant. I mean, I knew what StarCraft was and I knew what StarCraft players were, but why would anybody care that a StarCraft player is walking around? And then they said, well, that's the biggest thing. Like all of us watch these big events, these things that came to be known as esports. And then when I went back to the hotel, I turned on the TV and there's like 3 channels dedicated to video game competitions. And I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. So I love video games. I've been playing them since they were invented, since the creation of it, right? 75 technically. And I just couldn't believe that it had gone to that level. It was like both shocking and also awesome. But I think us trying to copy South Korea's popularity of esports is incorrect. It's a different culture. PC Bangs, which are the gaming venues they have there, cannot be replicated here very easily, even though many people have tried. But the culture is completely different. So what we're trying to do and working with other ones, and especially these kind of events that Ari is hosting, is steer the industry to move away from trying to replicate a different market that doesn't work here.
Right. That's very clear. That's a very, very interesting example. We have had a conversation with Andrew Welgos, the executive director of Esports Innovation Center, a few days ago. We discussed the case of Esports Entertainment Group in New Jersey becoming the first licensed esports betting operator, and also holding the first skills-based wagering event in the US with Hard Rock Atlantic City this year. He said that maybe EEG was the guinea pig and spent a lot of money in a market that maybe is not there yet. So it was like some kind of risk for EEG. How would you assess these first steps taken by the EEG in New Jersey? Do you think it's opening up, or maybe is there any lessons from this venture that they are trying to invest on with this new technology, the land duel, I think it is?
So I'm friends with a lot of people at EEG. They're good guys, very good guys. There's a lot that I can't say, and a lot that I won't say, because they are doing a project that's very, very difficult, very expensive. They have a distributed company, so they have a lot of different parts of agents all over the world that are trying to do something to cross different time zones and languages, and all these things make a hard project even harder. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say, because I think Andrew's in a better position to talk about them than I am. I'm obviously uncomfortable here. I will say that there's a lot of learnings in what they did. I pointed to that event with the 1.7 million viewers as an example of the interest already there, right? So if you're going to run an event with marketing and then tie that marketing to the wagering, right? So if you're going to say, hey, we're going to run this Call of Duty event or this Rocket League event, and we're going to take wagers on it, then you should promote that event on all your socials, on whatever streams or sponsorships you can muster together to tell people that on this date there is an event, these are the players, and this is what and you can wager on this stuff, right? So I think that's one of the most important things, is that if you're going to put things to wager on your app, tell people that it exists. The other one is tell people that your app exists, right? So I haven't seen a lot of marketing for their products, but marketing is expensive. So it's also, how do you create partnerships to let people know that your app exists, etc. The other thing I would probably talk about is whether or not it's simple enough to use your technology, right? So EEG has a couple of different things that they are moving into the marketplace. One is Vi.gg, which is an online sportsbook type thing for esports. Yeah. So when you launch something like that, you have to look at the competition and say, okay, like for example, Rivalry is a great competitor, or even DraftKings, because they're all running esports events too, like fantasy sports, right? How does what we're doing compare with them? So can we steal users from DraftKings or Rivalry, which is offshore product? Can we steal those products? Not steal the products, steal the users from those products. And how do we do it with a better product, better marketing, better experience? So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that the other product is I think Helix was doing this thing, FanDuel. And I know they have to change the name, but FanDuel is a sort of a product where you wager against other people for money. And I think that the biggest issue you're going to have right off the bat is explain to people, how does this work? Mm-hmm. Right? Why should I trust this? And I'm not saying that you don't, that there's nothing not trustable with their software. I'm saying if I was a user, that's the first thing I'm going to ask, right? Obviously that they were cleared by the DGE to do that, so it is trustable. So I want to make that clear, it is trustable. But for a user point of view, how do they know it's trustable? Because you're talking about something that no one's ever done before, right? So in those situations, you want to show an example of it being done. You want to, even at the event, hey, we're going to show you a couple of things. We're going to put $5 on this guy. We're going to put $10 on this girl, and we're going to show you how this works, right? It just kind of explaining it before you throw people into a room and want them to do it. That's what I think can be improved on. And the other one is, like, what is it that your brand represents? Are you doing esports? Are you going to do mostly online esports? Are you going to do esports live in a live environment? Is it a combination of the offerings? Make it clear what it is you want to do. Because I think what you see is, and I see, like, on LinkedIn, a lot of the industry people are throwing around, like, this company only made this much money on esports, and in June, obviously this doesn't work. But I think it's a very simple way of looking at things to say, well, why did this company only make this much money? What are the contributing factors to make this much money? So if go back to I used to be in TV. If you make a television show and you put it on Netflix, it could be the best show ever made. But if Netflix doesn't promote the show, how would you ever know that it exists? Right? And I think that's the biggest issue. So, you can make this great show, the show gets 10 viewers, and then the headline comes out, Anthony's new show only has 10 viewers. Well, it's like, yeah, it only has 10 viewers because nobody can even find it. Sure. And that's actually the biggest issue, is if you're going to spend all this money to do something, tell people about it. Because then the news that comes out of it, the spin, is that it doesn't work. And I think that many people believe it does work, just if you do it the right way. And I don't have Rivalry's numbers in front of me, but they make a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah, breaking records. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they're doing the exact same thing. So
Mhm.
the industry should take a look at those numbers instead of and find out why that's working. Is at the same time they're looking at the low numbers and find out why that wasn't working.
Very clear. Just a couple of last topics for you, because we also had a conversation with Eric Weiss, the former New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement. There were two different perspectives. One from Welgus, who said that there was a lack of infrastructure here well, maybe in New Jersey, but in general in the U.S. To make these conversations real. What we are discussing. And Weiss actually said that he did find, well, he had created quite a strong regulatory framework, and there are incentives for investment and new projects in New Jersey with New Jersey First. And there's also Continent 8, which has a high-speed service. And there's a lot of people that he mentioned in terms of physical infrastructure. So maybe it would be nice to have your own view about the infrastructure being actually a key hurdle here to actually have these technologies and implement these immersive technologies and at the casinos in Atlantic City, for instance.
Well, yeah, and Eric's a very good friend of mine. Very good friend of mine. So everything, I tend to side with Eric on almost everything he says, because he's a real expert in this field. New Jersey is the leading state. They're the most aggressive. I would say Nevada is next with some of the stuff that Seth Young and Seth Shaw are doing with their committee out there in Nevada, the esports regulatory committee. So what does infrastructure mean? Infrastructure means a lot of things, but at a helicopter level, it just means how are we going to figure out how to do this, right? So how do you do a live event? What are the rules for that? What are the equipment requirements? What are the requirements for the streamers? How do you make sure there's no collusion? How do you know that the games aren't fixed and there's bots and stuff on it like that? So there's that one level. The other level is infrastructure also means laws, right? Like, is it legal to do these things? Mm-hmm. What are the is it do you require licensing, no licensing? And another way that infrastructure gets discussed is what are the business terms? So what do we expect to pay a partner for this or that? Like, are there sponsorships in place that can subsidize this? Can we afford to have events? Because setting up events is expensive with union costs and labor costs, right? No. So infrastructure means all of those things. And then on top of that, infrastructure means creating a process where video game companies like Activision and Blizzard and Riot and Microsoft are going to be comfortable allowing you to use their games in a regulated environment for real money, right? And all of that it's an enormous amount of stuff. But I can tell you that we've been successful. Like, my company is doing a very large share of that lift, along with people like Eric, along with people like Seth Young and Seth Shore, along with people like Andrew. And along with companies like Odds On Compliance and our partners. It's obviously there's self-interest because we're all looking to make this a successful endeavor. But it doesn't mean that we're not doing it the right way for the players and for the fans, right? I mean, it actually means that we are, like, that's the endeavor. Anyone can do this gray market, black market. We're trying to do it above board. Yeah. But, having daily conversations with business leaders, politicians, regulators, and individual sports companies and CEOs and casters and streamers and players, it's a lot to keep in track of. It really is. But I would say right now, New Jersey and Nevada are clearly in the lead. But most states tend to follow the guidance, if not the first mover in this space. And I think once established in both of these states, and some other states that I can't talk about just yet, you're going to see it rapidly evolving throughout the United States.
Great. Well, thank you, Anthony. Just one last question. It's two things actually that we've covered. We reported at Jonet this week. One is FaZe Clan going public and the Nasdaq. I think it's a very interesting project and approach. Well, it has partnered up with DraftKings as an official sports betting, iGaming, and daily fantasy partner. And also the other thing was actually last week, Bally's Las Vegas opening an arcade. Traditional arcade video gaming room where there actually was a sports book before. Now that Caesar is rebranding Bally's Las Vegas into Horseshoe. So two things that brought my attention, and maybe what do you take from these two these two actions or that happened very recently in terms of the approach of esports communities like FaZe Clan that is actually is focused on Gen Z but that is caught the attention from operators like DraftKings and Bally's Las Vegas, which is a traditional operator investing in an arcade space.
Well, I love arcades. So there's an arcade about an hour and a half from here called Yestercades in New Jersey. I will make a trip every 4 months and spend, as much time as I can up there. I love I have an arcade in my house.
Yeah, I can
this is my office here, but I love arcades. So that move, I don't know the details of that move, but I mean, people love arcades, and every time there's an arcade built, whether it's like a beercade like in Philadelphia, people go. And it may be a mix of young and old, because those games still appeal to a lot of different demographics. So good for Bally's. Bring one to Atlantic City. I would love to have it. FaZe Clan is a much more interesting story for me, because I know one of the board members there. I'm actually a business partner with him, and we have an announcement with this partner, so I can't say anything that we haven't announced yet. But FaZe Clan is interesting because they're not an esports company. They're a lifestyle brand. It happens to use esports and Gen Z as the brand, right? And it is very, very interesting to me how many others will follow in their footsteps, because we've been waiting for that sort of moment where things break out and become, now the next generation is taken over kind of thing. And I think FaZe Clan is on the cusp of being that that spark. They represent the whole crypto, NFT space is sort of driven by groups like FaZe Clan that use that same sort of enthusiasm to drive up interest, in cryptocurrencies and whatnot. So there's a lot of, the culture is moving in that direction. We have an announcement that is going to be tandem. It's following on the footsteps of what FaZe Clan just did, and it's going to be a media announcement. And there's a few people that know it already. We actually spoke yesterday at the NACE conference to talk about it. The NACE Esports conference of collegiate esports. I think you're going to see that FaZe Clan will start to turn the keys over from the millennial generation to the Gen Z generation. And I think the Gen Z generation is going to be much more aggressive about culture than the millennial generation. It's already happening, right? So Gen Z is a totally different kind of group of people, and they're much more aggressive, and they're much more business minded. And I think the world will change very, very quickly. So I'm very excited about what FaZe Clan is doing.
Right. Well, it sounds quite exciting and interesting as well. Thank you very much, Anthony. I think it was a very mind-opening and forward-thinking conversation, and all these insights from you. It's been a real pleasure, and hopefully we can catch up soon with as more developments and as the summit comes closer for a new conversation about these new ideas for the casino industry. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You too.